What is up and welcome back. It's your hostess doing the mostest, Kevon She, and we are back with another episode of So There's That. I am super excited about today's episode, but a quick disclaimer. If you hear heavy breathing, loud dancing, and the sounds of hootie hoo, it's my dogs in the background. So they are my managers, my supervisors, my PR, my HR. But the big thing is they're just always here making sure that I'm doing everything on time. Whenever I'm trying to be lazy, they be right there on my ass telling me to get up and put in that work. So, you know, if you watch the Reasonable Doubt video and listen to that episode, you'll hear me like saying some stuff. But yeah, they just be all up and in here. These are my babies. We do almost everything together. So that's my little disclaimer. So any noise that you hear, there's them. Moving on to today's episode, we are doing season 1, episode 1 of UnPrisoned. So UnPrisoned, if you listened to the last episode, also falls underneath the Onyx Collective. And one of the things that I forgot to say is Kerry Washington is an executive producer on Reasonable Doubt, and she's also an executive producer and starring in UnPrisoned alongside Delroy Lindo. So if you're not familiar with UnPrisoned, basically the premise is you have Paige Alexander, and her dad is getting out of prison after 17 years, and she's trying to deal with how they're going to piece together their family, and they're also dealing with the trauma and the aftermath of what a family actually goes through when a family member goes to prison, and what happens to that family dynamic when they come out. This is based on Tracy McMillan's real life and her journey from when her dad got released from prison and how they were able to kind of go and rebuild their relationship and just kind of really face a lot of trauma head on. So I really wanted to say that we would not have this show if we did not have Tracy McMillan. So shout out to you, Tracy, for being vulnerable enough for us to be let into your world, to allow us to cry with you, to laugh at you and with you sometimes. Really appreciate it. This show, the premise of the show is very personal for me, and I just want to say to everybody involved, I will see y'all on set in the future. It's out there, it's happening. So going back into the opening of the show, so Paige, she's a family psychologist, and she's one of those ones who, you know, she's hip and she's cool. So she's going to get on Instagram Live and just document some of the things that pops into her mind, typically based on situations that's happening in real life in real time. So this morning, she's talking about repetition compulsion, and she's just saying basically you're doing all the same things, you're saying all the same things, you're not really taking the same path while expecting a different result in the end, whether that's with a personal relationship, a friendship, or a relationship with a parent. And she's basically just kind of talking a little bit on the surface on how do you break the cycle of repeating everything over and over again while expecting something different but still dealing with the same hurt. She also brings up something to me that I think that is a really big theme of season 1. And before she gets off her live, she says, how you get parented is how you partner. Put a pin in it. Put a pin in it. Bookmark. Do something. Screenshot this moment. So at this point, she realizes that she's running late and she needs to get Finn up and out the door. Finn is her son, and he's like mid-teens. And she's like, you know, hurry up and get out. And he was like, well, you know, how do you feel today? You know, your dad gets out of prison. And she's like, yeah, I'm all right. Like, everything is great. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. And so he's like, well, I get to meet him. And she was like, not really thought that far yet. And he was like, do I call him grandpa? Like, what's up? And she was like, we could talk about that later. I don't know if I want you to meet him, but we need to get you to school. So Paige gets Finn to school, and then she pulls up at the prison, and She is sitting like in the lobby, and there's these double doors, and it keeps clicking, and then the door slam, clicking, and then the door slam. So it clicks, and she looks at the door in anticipation, and then somebody else walks out. And this happens a couple of times, and then the sound kind of gets a little bit lower, and we head into a flashback where we are introduced to young Paige. Young Paige is coloring in like a coloring book, and that same sound is there. And so we see that at one point in time when she was younger, she already went through this very thing with him. And so there's a little bit of trepidation and a lot of PTSD surrounding this moment. But never fear, on the last click and boom of the door, Delroy Lindo, aka Edwin, her father, walks out of the doors, and they greet each other for the first time in this level of freedom. So Edwin is super excited. They go into the office of his parole officer, and they're taking off like the shackles, the monitor, the everything, and they're just going over the rules of his parole. And this is where we meet Mel, his parole officer. And they start talking about the living situation, and Mel asked them like, oh, so you'll be living with her? And Edwin and Paige was like, no. And he talks about how she only has 2 rules. Don't ask me for no money, and you can't live with me, something like that. And I completely related, because like when you become a breadwinner, or there's a perception that you're the breadwinner or that you're the one that's well off, people don't ask you, oh, hey, how you doing, blah, 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 and then get off the phone. They will either outright ask you for money or only be nice to you so that they can end their sentence with asking for money. So I ain't gonna even lie, I felt her on that. But Mel is really pushing, you know, he wants to reduce Edwin's chances of recidivism. So recidivism is literally just the cycle of the system sending you out, and you don't have the tools or the support, and so the only thing that you lean on to make a living is the same thing that got you back into prison. So there's this cycle over and over and over, and you can tell that Mel is really, really passionate about his job and passionate about the success of the parolees. He's really invested, and he does not want to see them back in prison. And in this brief interaction, you can really get that from Mel. And the actor who plays Mel, I don't remember his real name, and my phone is nowhere near me right now to look it up, but he came to prominence in P-Valley. He was the one that was in like the down low relationship. I watched P-Valley a long time ago. I don't remember if he was a rapper or if he was a gangbanger, but y'all know who I'm talking about. But look it up. He plays Mel in this show, and it's really nice to just see him. Like the tone of everything is like light-hearted. And so even though we're talking about something like prison, we have this lightheartedness that surrounds it, and a lot of that really comes from Paige, where she's really just trying to keep it light and keep a distance, so that she doesn't feel any type of connection at her dad's release. So right before they get ready to leave, Mel pulls Paige to the side, and he was like, listen, like I really want you to rethink your dad staying with you. Like it's not enough for you to be the type of woman that has Black Lives Matter sign up in your front yard. You got to actually do the work that shows that Black Lives Matter. So at that point, she's kind of taken aback, and she's trying to like get a little defensive, but Mel clocked that she's somebody who talks about it, but she's not really about it. Or it's easy for her to put that information in that activism when it's not dealing with her life, but now that it is hers, he sees her trying to create this distance, and he just really wants to encourage her to invest in her dad. And he tells her, because she's like, well, everything is just going to be the same. Like, I'm used to this. When he got released in this year and this year and this year. And oh, so what's going to be different this time? And he was like, you know, it's not just different on your dad's part. If you want his actions to be different, then you have to put the work in supporting him so that you can get a different outcome. And think back to repetition compulsion, right? You're saying he's gonna do the same thing, but in your adulthood as his daughter, you weren't supporting him. So if he's gonna do the same thing and you do the same thing, then how are either one of you gonna get out of the cycle of him going in and out of prison in the cycle of disappointment? So we're heading outside, and Edwin, and he got some pep in his step, and he's trying to just keep the mood light because he knows, you know, he's not trying to ruffle her feathers. And he's like, so are you dating black guys now? And she's like, you trying to be up in my dating life? Like, what's up? And she was like, you know, we ain't even got to do all of this because like you're very difficult. And he was like, look, I'm trying because you're not the easiest to get along with either. And he tells her, I want this to be different. I got one daughter, you got one daddy. So what the hell we gonna do? Like the only way this is gonna work is us just acknowledging the fact that we're related to each other. And I'm trying to tell you that it's gonna be different this time, and I need you to allow me the space in the room for it to be different. In this same scene, what caused her to snap at him is because he brought up meeting his grandson, and she kind of went off. And so that's when he just kind of diverted to the lighter subject of if she was dating. So they get in the car, and she done checked her phone like 4 or 5 times. And so he's like, so who's the guy? And she's just like, what? Who says there's a guy? Like, I can't. He's like, you all up in your phone. And so he starts teasing her like, you won't text me back and stuff like that. And he just goes and gives her, you know, fatherly advice like, look, anybody that's not willing to put you first, put your needs and your priorities, or has you staring at your phone this many times without a response is not somebody that you need to be with. And so she just kind of blows him off. And I definitely understand blowing him off, because when you have a parent who has let you down in the parental department, it's very easy to discount their life experience as it pertains to you, because you no longer see them as a parent, and you see them as a burden and inconvenience, and you put a lot of distance between you so that you don't make a connection or a relationship to even want to lean on them for any type of advice. In this though, he presses, and to keep him from asking about Finn, you know, she answers a little bit of questions. So he's like, you know, is he married? And she was like, well, almost. He's separated. It's, you know, it's just a thing. It's just, we're just going through a thing. And he's laughing because he's like, baby girl, I know I have gone to jail, but when I was out, I know I taught you a thing or two about men. This ain't gonna work out. So they're driving up to the store because he needs some clothes. Like he's out of jail. He didn't leave with anything. And so they've gone to what I'm assuming is like a super Target. And they're going clothes shopping, and you know, we get them over there in the underwear section, and she's like, yeah, I think you should probably do this yourself. So I'm gonna go and see if I can pick up some groceries and go do something else. So she walks off while he's still looking at the racks. Again, it's been 17 years. What he looked like going in is not the style of clothes that is on the racks when he came out. So she goes and she's hiding in between some aisles, and she hops on live. Oh no, I'm getting ahead of myself. So she goes over, gets some food, and then she comes back and she doesn't see him. And so she's looking for him and she can't find him. So then she goes and she hops on IG Live, and she's like, look, see, he always does this. So I'm in the store and I take my dad clothes shopping, and I go for 2 seconds, and where is he when I get back? Nowhere to be found. Just like him. You abandoned me when you went to prison. I mean, just, it's a lot to put on IG Live as a psychologist. In my opinion, I'm just kind of like, I know psychologists need to have psychologists, but I feel like if you're gonna be on a public platform, to maybe sense of non-petty as you're explaining this, but to out your dad in this way, I personally felt uncomfortable, and I felt like it was unfair, because in this moment you don't know what's going on. You walked away, he's shopping, but you see her PTSD literally vomit outside of her mouth, and it really takes a strong leap forward to her abandonment issues. In the middle of her basically bashing her dad on Instagram Live, she sees him coming up, so she's like, hurry up, trying to get off the phone, because he found another shopper to help him shop and just kind of go around. And he was also hitting on the shopper. They done exchanged numbers and everything on the phone. No, did he have a phone yet? No. So he's hitting on her, and it's this white lady, and she just like, you could just tell he had told her like he was in, and she was just like, I just feel so bad. The system just doesn't do enough for people when they leave and all this other stuff. And Paige grabs her and she's like, girl, run. Okay, run for your life. And you should be ashamed of yourself. Girl, you could do better. Like, what are we doing? So they're getting ready to go check out. He's like, yo, like, why are you cock blocking? Like, it's been a long time, baby girl. I don't need you to get in the way between me and my lady friends. So they're going outside, and I think she still hasn't heard from Bill yet. And they're headed to the car, and they're just chopping it up or whatever. They sit in the car, and she gives him an iPhone, and you see him, you know, be like, you know, phones didn't look like this when I went in, and you know, they're making a little joke and a little nod to having a flip phone. And it's a cute little moment where she's kind of looking at him, and you kind of see like a sigh of relief that she realized she panicked a little bit too early, and he's just happy and enjoying his freedom. And so she kind of relaxes just a little bit, just a touch, love, a little bit. So she goes back to check her phone again before pulling off, and essentially Edwin tells her he just not that into you. And immediately he was, you know, he wasn't mean, rude, downing her, or even trying to call her stupid, but he's just like, I just got out of jail today, and you've been in your phone more than you've been present with me. What does that tell you? And if this guy is important, why isn't he checking on you in that way either? And so she just gets really defensive and was just like, how can somebody who's been in prison and who hasn't been a father sit up here and try to give me fatherly advice? So Edwin drops it, and I mean, he giggles a little bit like, you know what, you right, you know, but it's one of them giggles where it's like, let me just laugh to get rid of the tension, because it has to sting, it has to hurt a little bit. So they pull up to Nadine's house, and he was going to get some more clothes, just some of his old fits. And Nadine was his girl when he went into prison this last time. So he's asking Paige if she gonna come in the house, and she was like, no, Nadine is scary, like I don't want to have no parts with it. And he was like, she basically raised you. And Paige just kind of takes offense to that. She just takes offense. She don't like whatever it is. She don't like that her father put her in a position to have a relationship with Nadine. So he gets out the car, he goes into the house, and he's trying on clothes, and it's giving very much like old school pimp. He got the fur coats, he got all of this, and Nadine is just cracking up. She's like, don't nobody dress like this. Like, you gonna have to redo your wardrobe and everything like that. So they just having a little moment, and a little moment turns into a heated moment, and a heated moment turns into a little afternoon of passion. Okay, they're getting it in, and Nadine is fine. Okay, she is tall just like him. She can handle it, and you could just tell like that's her boo. Like, you're my boo thing. As Edwin and Nadine are catching up, Bill finally calls Paige. So she's all like super geeked. And he's like, oh, babe, you know, been swamped, you know, how about I take you out on a date because you're a special lady? And she's just cheesing and all this other stuff because she's finally getting the attention that she's been craving all day since texting him, and he never responded. But he gets off the phone and, you know, she's happy. She's feeling herself. And so she's like, you know what? Let me walk up in the house. First off, Dad's been in the house just a little bit too long. But I feel like internally she wanted to take this opportunity to like rub it in, like, look, see, Bill did hit me back. He does care about me. I'm not a side piece, I'm a main piece. And I feel like she just kind of internally was trying to get like a lick back with her dad. So she walks into the house and she's kind of looking around, because again, like I said, her relationship with Nadine is not the best. Nadine even mentioned earlier while Edwin was trying on clothes that she be commenting on Paige's Instagram and Paige will never respond, and she's upset that Paige treats her like she wasn't the one raising her. So that's kind of like the backstory of Nadine and Paige, and we only get a glimpse of it. So Paige is walking around, and she's walking around kind of like a stranger, but we know at some point you also lived in this house. And as she's looking around, she hears Nadine moaning loud. And with this moaning, we meet officially baby Paige. So baby Paige is like cussing up a storm, which I found out the actress, that was her favorite part, is that she gets to speak like an adult while being an inner child. And she talks about that repetition, compulsion all over again in the form of Edwin and his relationship with Nadine. So at the end of her rant and just having to endure the sounds of her dad and Nadine's lovemaking, she like throws up and she was like, can I get a healing? Because I need a healing. And it goes back to older Paige, adult Paige, and Nadine comes around the corner and she scares her because she didn't know that she was in the house. She's like, oh my God, you scared the shit out of me. And then Edwin comes around, his robe is wide open, he butt naked. It's just a comedic mess of adult Paige seeing her dad and his boo, because they're not really boyfriend and girlfriend, in this scenario. But what ends up taking place is an argument. So in this moment, apparently Edwin's robe being open, even though nobody knew that she came into the house and she already told him that she was staying in the car, she accuses them of being bad parents. So then Nadine and Paige go back and forth because Nadine is like, how are you going to sit up here and try to act all high and mighty as if we weren't doing the best that we can? So Edwin's trying to just like get everything calmed down, and things are just really coming to a head in this dynamic. And we don't really get to the meat of it, but the fact that the prison sentence and then him effectively coming out is really disruptive in a lot of areas of Paige's life, and it's making her kind of be in spaces that maybe for the past 17 years she was actively avoiding. Luckily for Paige, she is saved by her foster sister, who when she was she fostered a little bit with the Nelsons. And we only know a little bit about the Nelsons because Paige says something to the effect of Edwin should have left her with the Nelsons and shouldn't have left her with Nadine. And Paige is tired of hearing about the Nelsons. So her foster sister texts her and she's like, you know what? We gotta go. My sister texts me. So she drops Edwin off at her house while she goes and meets with Esty. So her sister's name is Esty. So Edwin's at home and he's looking around and he's just walking through and he's just kind of looking a little proud. You know, his daughter, you know, made a nice home for herself, and he's looking at pictures of her and Finn and all these different things because he's never met Finn. He just knows about him. And he's coming around the corner and Finn has skipped school and is coming to the house. So Finn's like, what the fuck? And Edwin's like, hello, I'm Edwin and you must be Finn. So they're talking and Finn's like, you know, you're not gonna tell my mama. And he was like, that ain't got nothing to do with me. So let's just get to know each other over some food. And Edwin opens up the refrigerator and he sees like these weird ass salads, and he was like, your mama be feeding you this shit or cooking you this shit? And he was like, well, she doesn't really cook, she just warms things up and gets takeout. So then Edwin opens up to Finn while making him like a real meal that he used to cater. And so we now know a little bit of his background is in the food industry, and the way that he talks about it, you can tell that he's passionate about it. Did you have to chew on the thing that makes noise during my recording? Don't look at me like that. No, I didn't want nothing. I just wanted you to tone it down. Okay. So same day, we see Paige with Esty, and apparently while at Nadine's, another offer for a house came through for Paige. And so Esty, I believe, works in real estate, so she just wanted to meet up with her and get her thoughts on the house. And turns out the house is a fixer-upper, but she just really wants to own a house for her and Finn, and just to be able to create something for him. And now we see that her motivation is to set up generational wealth for him, and her dad coming out of prison is kind of really shaking that a little bit, because now she has to be faced with what does setting a foundation for her son looks like with her father back in the picture. Esty basically says, you know, the house is a piece of shit, but you're really passionate, and you know, it's nothing that we can't fix and do anything like that. Then Paige asks her, you know, how's your mom and dad? And Esty's like, well, your mom and dad too, but you know, you keep pushing them out. So we're getting more nuggets of Paige really othering herself, but then blaming the people for the reason that she's outcast. Now, I don't know if anybody else picked up on that, but once that kind of happened, it's like you just got through yelling at Nadine and your dad. Like the Nelsons, they were great parents and they were great to me and they're just awesome, and I'm gonna go see my sister that I got through the Nelsons. And then you find out that she don't even talk to them like that, and then she's victimizing herself and blaming them. So we saw that she is kind of doing it with Edwin. We're seeing a little bit of nuggets where he's trying and she's not really giving him the room to try. And then she says it with Esty, with the Nelsons. They probably still want to see her. You keep putting them up on this pedestal in your life, but you have not talked to them and you have not seen them in quite some time. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And in this one episode, we see that Paige is living a fake life, just a life of make-believe, and it is all unraveling very fast. So we're back at the house, and Finn finally just asks him, you know, like, why were you in jail? And you know, he tells him, I wasn't in jail, I was in the penitentiary, you know, a little bit of elevated crimes or whatever. He doesn't really go into the specifics, but they're talking and they're bonding, and Edwin tells him, you know, you're my motivation to not go back. Like, I really, really, really want to do this and just be an example for you. Because Finn's dad is not in his life at all. He doesn't know who he is. And so Edwin's just kind of motivated by kind of how a lot of grandparents are. They fuck up with their own kids, and instead of fixing the relationship with their child, they try to fix their relationship with their child through the grandchild. But we all know that that never works out, because when you are good to the grandchild while ignoring the damage and the lifelong trauma that you left with the child, it creates a larger gap between you and the child, and it makes the child jealous of their own child, because they're getting the better version of you than they received. And instead of you sitting and owning up to your own shit with your child, you're choosing to throw it under the rug and get your do-over through the grandchild. And that's not how trauma works at all. At all. So while they're going through this, Finn's like, you know what, this was great, let me go back to my last class of the day, you know, let me be a good child. And at that moment, Paige walks into the house and she says, what the fuck? Like, it's like everybody is caught. She caught Finn out of school. She caught Edwin with Finn because she did not want them to meet at all. And it was in that moment that we knew, because she kept telling Finn, maybe, I'm not sure, we'll see. And then with her dad, she just kept changing the subject. And so now it's like her fear, this is a fear. Her fear is that her dad is going to jack her son up the way that she blames him for jacking her up. So all of the cats are out of the bag, okay? She's an emotional cat lady, and every single one of them cats are running around in this moment. We don't really get to see what happens with how she disciplines or reprimands Finn, because she is in a hurry to take her dad to Uncle Fox's house. Uncle Fox is the one where Edwin said that he was going to stay with when she said that he couldn't stay with her, with Mel at the parole board. So she pulls up and, you know, there's this younger dude sitting there and he's like, what up? I don't know if he said Edwin or if Edwin has like a street name. And then he was like, oh, who that fine ass lady with you? She got a nice ass. And Edwin's like, that's my daughter. So he feeling all embarrassed and stuff because Edwin clearly has like status with them. So Uncle Fox comes around and Paige knows who Uncle Fox is. He's like, oh, I haven't seen you in forever, you know, blah, blah, blah. And Edwin has all his clothes, his belongings in just a trash bag. And so she leaves him there and walks off. So Edwin goes in, he's looking around, and you can just kind of see Mel's words coming back to him, because Mel told him, staying at a place with Uncle Fox, who used to be in what you used to be in, but allegedly is not in anymore, is not what's going to get you down the path of actually doing something different. But he knows Paige don't want him around, and his pride is kind of in the way too, because he's trying to prove that he can change in the environment that got him there in the first place. So he's trying to prove this point to himself and to Paige. She's walking off, but she's going back and forth. She goes to the car, then she's walking away from the car. She goes to the car, she walks away from the car. And homeboy is still sitting there watching her. So she finally sits in the car, and she's just sitting there for a little while. And then finally she decides to pull off. We're back at her house. It's nighttime, and we get a voiceover of Paige, and they're just kind of going through the house, and you see Finn Googling penitentiary and just kind of looking up crimes, because now he's interested in understanding his grandfather. But Paige is giving a voiceover because she's still thinking about leaving him where he was, but she's wondering, do I grant him the opportunity to come back into my life? Because what if he makes the same mistake again? So she's in her room, and Finn comes in just like really startled, and he's like, Mom, like somebody's at the door. So she hurries up and goes to the door, and we open it, and we see Edwin. And he's staring at her, and he just, you know, he looks like all his guard is down, and that he lost the battle with his pride and his ego. And he says, I really want to do different, so I'm different. And in the beginning where he already knew, oh, no, hell no, I'm not staying with my daughter. In the beginning where he's like, you know, as much as I'm not easy for you, you're not easy for me, he lets all of that go. And he's standing there basically begging, stripped, naked, vulnerable, and asking for her to believe and accept that he will be different. And right as she nods her head, Ben walks up and he says, "Hi, Grandpa." And that ends the episode. So off rip, if you couldn't hear it in my voice, I am in love with the show. I have family members who have been in the prison system. I have family members who have been in and out. And I have family members who have successfully stayed out of prison. So the entire premise of this show is just really near and dear to me, because I feel that I get to understand my male family members through the lens of Edwin's character. But I also get to explore something in me through Paige, because through Paige I get to see if I have any internalized stereotypes about prisoners through her lens. There's some things that she talks about in some of the ways that she acts that are a reflection of people, whether it's prison, whether it's a parent who is consistently abandoning you, lying about being there for you or showing up for you and then they don't. I know what that feels like. And it really puts you in a place of not seeing things from your parents' point of view, because the inner child in you still has something to say about it. You're still mad about it. And when you're a child, a lot of adults in your life, they just, things will get better and things will get better. And they never let you scream. They never let you get the anger out. They never let you openly say, "I hate my mom. I hate my dad. I wish they were not here. I wish I was not here." They never let you do that. And so you grow up being this bigger person and trying to level up your life so that you can show everybody else. But the person that you don't end up showing is your inner child. Your inner child is pissed. And no amount of making more money, no amount of getting a bigger house, no amount of even being better for your own children will erase the pain that that parent who abandoned you causes every time you're in their presence. It will always show up. So episode 1, again, she imploded on the inside. Everything that she felt, and now the surfacing of seeing her inner child twice, we know that whatever life she's trying to portray on the internet, it has now been blown to pieces at the end of this episode. And now we get to follow the journey of what life looks like for the member and the family when coming home from prison. And I think it's a beautiful story. And I think the tone of voice, the lightheartedness, the inner child, like the presence of the inner child in these adult situations where she retreats into herself and we actually see that as a character, really creates a space where you can watch this with your family, even if you're watching it with the family member that hurt you and y'all still got some healing going on, and you can watch it and receive it in a way that starts the conversation for yourself, for your family, without it getting into an argument. Because now you can talk about it in the third person and round it out in the first person. Because when you're confronting the family member that hurt you, they aren't on the receiving end of themselves. So they deflect and they defend their actions against you and basically try to tell you to get over it. But when you put that person in front of a TV show, because everybody can see, everybody got advice from the outside looking in, okay? But don't ever know how to fix their own shit. So when you put that person in front of a TV and they watch a character, a parent, mistreat a child, and they start being like, "Ooh, I can't believe that," you can be like, "Oh, wow. Because this reminds me of a similar moment where blah, 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 and you made a similar decision. So why do you think they shouldn't do that?" You can now bring it up in their face, because now they are feeling the impact of their actions through another character, and now you can kind of connect with that. And that is what I love the most about the show, and honestly it's why I'm really passionate about wanting to be in the show, because I am like transported, like on some non shoot my shot stuff. This is one of them shows in the last, I'm talking like the last 10 years, where my heart and my soul was like, you have a story to tell in this. Oh, I'm getting emotional. This show, oh my God, I didn't know. Okay. Whew. This show makes me think of my brothers. It makes me think of one of my favorite cousins, but it also makes me think and confront my own inner child and the abandonment that I felt growing up, and how a lot of things I had to fix on my own with zero tools, and the mistakes that I had to make to even know what I know today as an adult. And my inner child is rooting for me, and she is, a lot of scars have been treated, not bandaged, but treated. But the show really brings up a lot, and not bringing it up to the point where I'm like upset or not gotten through it, but it makes me reflect on the parts of my life where I was so sad and I felt so abandoned and I felt so alone. It made me reflect on time that I missed with my siblings. It made me reflect on time that I missed with my cousins. And you know, Edwin was in jail. He was in prison for 17 years. And when you take years off of people's lives, it's not just years for the people experiencing things. It's years for the people who are on the consequential end of those actions. So there's that. Unprisoned Season 1, Episode 1. Season 2 premieres today, 17 July on Hulu. Please watch, support the show. It is funny. It is going to make you cry. It's going to make you think. It is going to challenge you. And it's just good TV. Thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for next week's recap.